Locate the L-shaped lever to the right of the main control knob and rotate that end up. It should stay up for until about a minute after the fire has started. Light a match and make sure it is well established. Place it end down at the center burner. You can also use a barbecue lighter. Then turn the knob about 2 turns counterclockwise to light the fire. Then you can put out the match. With luck, the main burner is now glowing with a distinct blue flame emerging from the holes at the end of the burner. If you missed a step and did not turn the knob fast enough or did not stop your stove correctly previously, you may have a partially orange flame like this, or worse, a big orange fireball about a foot tall. Do not panic, this will not do harm to you or the stove unless someone gets the idea to flip the back of the stove down over the burner. This is a really bad idea. Simply wait a few minutes or turn off the main valve and wait a minute or two for the flame to stop. You'll find out what to do in these cases in Chapter 6. One of the main causes for a small orange flame like this is that the stove wasn't properly pumped. What you should do is unhook the pump shaft and pump the stove until the orange flames turn into blue ones. Another step you could take is lower the amount of heat and the stove will get bluer. Like that. And then the stove is perfectly blue. With a successful blue flame burning, wait about a minute and turn down the L-shaped lighting lever of the main control knob on the fuel tank. Turn down this knob whenever the flame is red to get it back to the blue color. Do not light a side burner until it is needed. To light the side burner, the center burner must be already operating. Place a lighted match in the desired end burner near the bottom of the burner, near an air hole and the match handle elevated. Leave the match in this position and rotate the end valve counterclockwise, lefty-loosey, until the flame starts in that burner. Do not try and turn down the burner, as it might go off when the tank pressure decreases. In this case, fuel will still be sent to the end burner until enough fumes are present and will ignite from the main burner. You may also use a barbecue lighter to light the end burners. This, however, requires 2 hands. The flame should be present in the burner before and as you open the valve. The burner should have a nice blue solid flame. Repeat for the other end burner when that burner is needed. When the tank is full of fuel, there is not much room for air. The pump adds additional air to this air space, thus increasing the pressure inside the tank. This pressure is what drives the liquid fuel out of the top of the fuel tank and down the generator tube. As the liquid gas crosses the flame that is burning in the center burner in the generator, it is transported from a liquid to a gaseous gas. The burners operate best on this gaseous version of the Coleman fuel. Now that the stove is going, operation is fairly simple. The biggest concern is keeping the stove pumped up. In the beginning, when the tank is full of fuel, there's not much airspace. It does not take many pumps to compress the small amount of air. However, this also means that it will not have enough stored pressure to keep the stove running until the fuel runs out. There are several ways to tell if the tank needs pumping. You can hear the stove operate. There should be a steady hiss sound. As this hiss weakens, you will need to pump the fuel tank. If you ever see the flame pulse or surge or look like it has a heartbeat, the stove needs pumping. You can also simply try to pump the stove more. With each stroke of the pump, you should feel the effort required to pump increase a little. When it becomes hard to pump, stop. Often after pumping, you will need to turn down the main control knob to keep the same level of heat you had before pumping. The end burners must be turned off before the center burner. You do this by turning the end valves clockwise, righty-tighty, or simply follow the arrows on the end of the stove. Turn clockwise until they firmly stop. After turning off any of the fuel valves, there will be a delay before the burners actually stop. This is because heat is always expanding any remaining gaseous gas. This delay is not always just a few seconds, but can last minutes. If the knob was truly turned fully and firmly clockwise, it will eventually turn off. If the stove runs out of fuel or sufficient air pressure, it will stop. You might immediately notice this. Even though the flame may be extinguished, the residual gas may still be forced into the stove. Once you have turned off the side burners, you can turn off the main burner by turning the black knob clockwise. Make sure that you should not touch the stove or pull out the gas tank until you don't hear any more sounds coming from the stove. Once the stove is properly turned off and it is cool, you can close up the stove and put back the gas tank. When finished with the stove for the current meal, consider refilling the fuel tank. Will you need it for the next meal on the trip or not? After dinner, you may have some leisure time. In the early morning when you need to fix breakfast, you will appreciate a full tank. Let the stove cool before completely removing the fuel tank. The last thing you should do after meal is to make sure the 3 fuel valves are fully off. You might even consider letting the pressure out of the tank. This will greatly prevent the chance of a big orange fireball at the next use.